Hello, welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel. My name is Matt from Ratho Corta, and today we're going to talk about my SubZero Rogue VI Baritone electric guitar. Several years ago, I saw a photo of the Squier Jazzmaster Baritone in black and got really excited by the guitar. I absolutely love the way it looks and was super keen to try a guitar with that 30-inch scale length. Unfortunately, at the time, after consulting my bank balance, I decided that I probably didn't need any more guitars. Fast forward a couple years and the Squier Jazzmaster Baritone is an incredibly popular and quite rare guitar. This is down to a few factors. Firstly, I'd say the popularity of the Liverpudlian band Loathe. Secondly, the fact that the guitar was pretty favorably reviewed by a number of really decent YouTubers. And thirdly, the fact that Squier no longer makes the guitar obviously contributes to its rarity. The guitars are trickier to find now and a little expensive when they pop up second hand, and I definitely have experienced a little regret at not buying one of those guitars when I first saw them, when they were more readily available a few years ago. I more recently had my attention drawn to this guitar, the SubZero Rogue VI Baritone, the Bun's 2019 Baritone Roundup video. I'll put a link for that in the description below. From what I understand, SubZero is Gear for Music's own house brand, perhaps similar to what Harley Benton is to Music House Thomann. I had never tried SubZero guitars before and had no idea what the quality was like, but the really decent price, the great looks, and the fact that it comes with humbuckers convinced me that it could be a really cool alternative to the Squier. So after a little bit of deliberation, I decided to order one. The most appealing feature of this guitar for me is the fact that it has a 30-inch scale length and ships tuned E to E, a whole octave below a standard tuned guitar. It's pretty clear that for tuning low and retaining decent intonation and tension, it's essential to increase the scale length of the guitar as opposed to simply adding more strings. Having the 30-inch scale length means you should, with a decent setup, be able to intonate this guitar correctly in a tuning as low as E standard. For me, the fact that the SubZero comes equipped with humbuckers is another real plus. This makes it sonically quite different from the Jazzmaster and other offset body bass 6 designs. Typically, with a guitar in this price range, changing the pickups is one of the first modifications I'd think to make, but I've been really pleasantly surprised by these. I love the way the stock pickups sound, and I don't see myself changing them in a hurry. I'm also a big fan of the fixed bridge string-through body design, which I have on 2 of my other guitars. I think this is just a really cool, classy looking design. I do tend to slip a small strip of foam under the strings when tracking to mute any sympathetic resonance. Despite it being only available in this tobacco sunburst, I do think it looks pretty great. If you've seen any of my previous videos, you'll know that I'm a fan of a modern looking Super Strat. but there is something kind of appealing about playing more contemporary sounding metal on such a vintage looking instrument. In terms of construction, the Rogue VI does feel like a solid instrument with robust hardware and an uncomplicated layout. The reverse headstock took a little getting used to, but now I love it and I think it complements the body shape pretty well. As with my Jackson JS227, when I first received this guitar I did have a few concerns. The guitar arrived with some minor blemishes and imperfections to the finish. There were some slightly grubby marks around the maple neck and headstock, some finish imperfections under the lacquer, and a tiny scratch in the body. In addition, the guitar arrived with what I think is a 90-20 string set, as opposed to the 14-68 which is listed on the Gear for Music webpage. While the string gauge didn't really bother me, it did concern me that the guitar might have actually been B-stock. I contacted Gear for Music highlighting the finish imperfections and the string gauge discrepancy. They confirmed that the guitar was not B-stock, but that the finish blemishes weren't in line with their expectations of new instruments shipping from their store. They also confirmed that the string gauge discrepancy was an out-of-date description on their webpage. They were kind enough to offer me a full exchange or a small discount to the guitar I had to compensate for the blemishes in the finish. In the end, I kept the original guitar as the issues were only really cosmetic and didn't bother me too much. It is worth bearing in mind that this guitar is pretty inexpensive, and as a result there are a number of other small, mostly cosmetic imperfections. The binding around the fretboard is a little untidy in places, and while the neck joint looks good, it appears to have been routed out after the finish was applied, resulting in some minor chipping along the edge of the joint. The pickup mounting also seems a little wobbly to me. The fret ends are definitely a little sharp, despite the fact that several of the riffs I've written on this guitar involves lots of sliding up and down the length of the neck. Those sharp ends don't tend to bother me too much. Ironically, one of the trickier issues I have dealt with this guitar has been intonation. Despite the scale length and string gauge, I do sometimes battle to get this guitar to intonate perfectly at the 12th fret, particularly on the low E. My best efforts to give the guitar a proper setup, including adjusting the string saddle back as far as it'll go, do seem to have helped. I'm sure that a professional luthier could make the intonation even more accurate. My final criticism would be that the headstock might be a touch small. The tuning pegs are positioned very near to one another, not allowing a huge amount of room for twisting. I suspect a slightly larger headstock could have looked a little more balanced alongside the large offset body and would have allowed for a more generous layout for the tuners. From the right camera angle, however, it still looks pretty awesome. First thing to say is that I absolutely love this guitar. It isn't perfect, but I get such a kick out of playing it. Chunky strings, the super long scale length, the pickups sound great. The fact that it's completely different to any other guitar in my collection makes it a really fun instrument for me to play. In terms of extended range guitars, to me it feels a little like most 7 and 8 strings are still fundamentally trying to be guitars, whereas the Rogue VI, and I guess any other bass 6 type design, sits fairly unashamedly between a guitar and a bass. The strings are a little thicker, the action's a little higher, the neck's a little fatter. All of these things contribute to an instrument that encourages you to play in a different way and has the potential to really supercharge your creativity. I think it's also worth mentioning that the instrument market has changed profoundly since I was younger and looking to buy my first guitar. The range and quality of affordable instruments now is kind of mind-blowing. So if you're at all curious about baritone or extended range guitars, now is a really good time to try them. Also, if you haven't already, I strongly encourage you to check out the Buns YouTube channel. If you have an interest in 6-string baritone guitars, particularly in a metal context, that is the channel to watch. I'll put a link to his channel in the description below. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. Cheers. Some joy, mate. Have a little joy.